Welcome to today's Sunday special, where I talk about a topic that I found interesting in the week and decided to make a sort of rambly video about it. Today I'm going to be talking about Rome, but not the empire, because obviously that's been done to death. I actually want to talk about the city itself, and it's sort of the city's history throughout time. So starting in 753 BC, when Rome was founded, either by Romulus and Remus or Aeneas, the uh, the hero of the Aeneid, sort of fictional founding of Rome, which was just a rip-off of Homer's Odyssey, um, was founded in 753 BC, supposedly on the 21st of April by Romulus and Remus, on the Seven Hills. Now, this is a strategically important position because it's on a ford of the Tiber, and it's on some pretty defensible hills, as you can see. Um, and the city would be essentially a culmination of these seven villages into a larger uh, conglomeration of peoples. Um, Now, not to go into too much detail, but the Etruscan monarchs of Rome, because all of the monarchs of Rome were Etruscan, not Roman, brought a lot of sort of, in quotation marks, Roman culture, such as aqueducts and arguably gladiatorial combat, which I might do next time, I'm not sure. Um, Although some historians suggest that it comes from Campania, and there's a significant debate there. Um, but this sort of period of Etruscan hegemony was decimated in on the turn of the fourth BC, fourth century BC, during the Battle of the Allia, following the collapse of the Roman monarchy, as seen by this beautiful painting here, where essentially cities in Etruria and as far south as Campania were completely decimated and razed by the Gauls, who had populated the Po Valley in northern Italy, um, and this is a significant cultural shift in Roman culture away from the sort of relatively unknown and undeciphered Etruscan society, um, which was probably the most important thing that could have happened in human history, because it set up the conflict of the orders, and the legionary system, which would drive Rome right the way around the Mediterranean Sea. Now, I'd just like to briefly mention that rebuilding cities is a relatively recent phenomenon. Um, so, like Fukushima and Dresden, which were completely destroyed, have been rebuilt and are currently populated by people. But this wasn't particularly true in ancient times, as cities that were destroyed were often deserted, like Troy, for example, which was found in the early 20th century, by a French archaeologist, I believe, in southern Anatolia, or northern Anatolia. Can't remember which one, but either way, it was deserted and only recently found. Um, but the sacking of Rome was so devastating that the people in the city suggested moving to Veii, or Wei, a recently conquered city to the north, as you can see back on the previous map. Um, but it was sort of so shocked the Romans that they performed human sacrifices, which was a practice almost uniquely disdained by the Roman religion. They buried one of the Vestal Virgins underground, if I remember correctly. Um, because, yeah, the Romans were completely obliterated. There's a brilliant extract from a history book where the Romans were described as sitting like statues, perfectly still, as the Gauls walked into the Senate building, with their sort of magnificent beards and sort of ancient Roman uh, regalia. And then when one went to touch when one Gaul went to touch a Roman's beard, he slapped his hand away, upon which the Romans were promptly massacred. Um, but um, this sort of seemingly paradigm shift in Roman culture away from the north is evidenced due to the rebuilding of Rome. So Rome was initially a city of wood and stone, which was haphazardly rebuilt, but it would take a complete turnabout between sometime from the 4th century and between now, present day, and the fall of the Republic. And the Romans had created a basic city plan where it was built around a central forum, surrounded by grid streets, and the rivers would provide transport, sewage, and water disposal. But here you can see the two sort of parallel roads running through the centre of Rome. Now, obviously, the two Julius Caesars would change the face of Rome, and it's they're inescapable. You can't avoid talking about them in a history about Rome. But in essence, Augustus is relevant because of his Pax Romana, which would allow the Roman Republic or Empire to invest in marble quarries north of the city, and massive construction projects. Sort of on every emperor would successively build a palace on the Capitol Hill, and yeah, the rebuilding of Rome, going back to it briefly, would be essentially Greek builders, because the Romans, following the sacking, would be fighting this thing called the conflict of the orders, which, if you don't know about, you should definitely read up on it. It's incredibly interesting, where basically all of Rome's recent conquests over the last century attempted to gain independence, and most importantly the Etruscans and Samnites, and this meant the Romans would use Greek builders instead of Etruscan ones, as seen from a lot of the masons' marks in Rome. So I guess that's where that's one explanation for the cultural shift.